Imagine walking into a room and knowing exactly what everyone is feeling, before a single word is spoken. You shake someone's hand, notice a twitch in their foot, the way their shoulders shrink, the way they glance away, and instantly you understand. Something's off. This is what every body is saying offers. Written by former FBI counterintelligence agent Joe Navarro, this book is not just about reading body language. It's about unlocking the most honest form of human communication, nonverbal behavior. Navarro spent decades interrogating spies, terrorists, and suspects, not by listening to what they said, but by watching what their bodies revealed. Here's the truth. The body speaks first. And it almost always tells the truth. While words can lie, posture cannot. Facial expressions can be rehearsed, but feet don't fake comfort. The brain, in moments of stress or emotion, sends signals down the spine and into motion. Gestures, movements, tics, and reactions that reveal what someone is really experiencing, even when they don't want you to know. And the best part? You don't need to be in law enforcement to use this. Anyone, yes, anyone, can learn to read others with clarity and confidence, once they know what to look for. This book shows you how. In this video, we'll break down Navarro's most important principles. You'll learn why the lower body, legs and feet, is far more honest than the face. How to spot signs of discomfort, deception, or hidden tension in seconds. Which nonverbal behaviors are hardwired survival mechanisms, and what they mean when they appear. And how to use this awareness, not to manipulate, but to protect yourself, negotiate smarter, build trust faster, and move through the world with sharper perception. Because when you learn how to read what every body is saying, you stop guessing and start seeing. Let's begin. Part 1. The truth behind the silence. Why nonverbal matters more. When most people think about communication, they think about words, language, phrases, scripts. But Joe Navarro's entire career inside the FBI taught him something radically different. Something that most people miss entirely. Real communication happens without speaking. Long before a person opens their mouth, they're already telling you everything you need to know. The way they hold their arms. The way their feet shift. The speed of their blink. The tension in their jaw. These subtle, often unconscious behaviors speak volumes. Not just about what someone is doing, but about what they're feeling. And here's the key insight. Feelings always come before words. Emotion is primal. It hits the body before the brain even has time to put things into language. Which means that if you know how to read the body, you'll always be one step ahead of the spoken truth. Or the spoken lie. Navarro explains that the nonverbal isn't just a part of communication, it's the foundation. It's how we signal fear, dominance, discomfort, attraction, deception, stress, and even contempt. And while we can train our faces to lie, our bodies often betray us, especially in high-stakes moments when stress takes over and the survival brain kicks in. This is why understanding body language is not about learning a few tricks or decoding arm-crossing cliches. It's about tuning into the language of biology. Every shift, every twitch, every protective gesture is rooted in millions of years of evolution. The nervous system reacts before conscious thought, and in that reaction, truth leaks out. This kind of awareness changes the way you experience every conversation. You stop listening only to words and start noticing the silences between them. You start seeing discomfort even behind smiles. You recognize fear hidden in arrogance. You begin to understand people, not based on what they say, but based on what they reveal. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Nonverbal communication isn't noise. It's signal. And in a world full of rehearsed words and guarded facades, learning to read that signal gives you something rare: clarity. Part 2. The feet never lie. Why the lower body reveals the truth. When people think about body language, they usually focus on the face. Smiles, eyebrows, eye contact. But Joe Navarro learned early in his FBI career that the most honest part of the body isn't above the shoulders, it's far below. If you really want to know how someone feels, watch their feet. The face can lie. It's social, practiced, and trained. People know how to fake a smile, maintain eye contact, and use charm to mask discomfort. But the lower body, that part rarely gets rehearsed. It's primal. It's fast. And it reacts before the person even knows it. Feet and legs are hardwired to respond to danger. They're the body's escape route. When a person feels threatened, stressed, or trapped, even if only psychologically, their feet often betray their desire to leave. One foot might start to point toward the exit. Legs may cross away from the person they're speaking to. Or they may begin to bounce, shift, or retreat. It's not a conscious decision. It's a survival response. That's what makes it so reliable. The lower body is slower to adapt socially, which means it's less filtered, less self-conscious, and far more honest. In moments of tension, the face may still smile, the voice may sound calm, but if the feet begin to pull away, something underneath is shifting. Discomfort is rising. This insight changes everything. It means that to read someone accurately, you need to stop staring at their eyes and start noticing where their body wants to go. Whether they lean in or lean out. Whether their stance widens with confidence or narrows with uncertainty. Whether their feet stay planted or start to drift toward the door. Navarro calls the feet the true window into the soul, because while people may try to edit their words and polish their expressions, their foundation, their stance, direction, movement, is almost always authentic. In everyday life, this awareness gives you an enormous edge. You start recognizing the subtle signs of hesitation in a negotiation. You sense disinterest in a conversation long before it becomes explicit. You feel the tension in someone's posture before it erupts into conflict. And because you can see these things, you can respond with calm, with clarity, with control. Reading the feet isn't about being clever. It's about being present. And when you learn to notice what's happening below the surface, you begin to navigate human interaction with a kind of precision most people never experience. Part 3. Comfort versus discomfort. The true map of human emotion at the core of Navarro's system is a simple but powerful idea. The body only ever communicates two things, comfort or discomfort. Forget about memorizing hundreds of individual gestures. Real mastery comes from understanding the emotional state behind the behavior. Every movement, shift, or reaction we make is either a sign that we feel safe and relaxed, or a signal that something is wrong, threatening, or uncertain. The body doesn't speak in complicated language. It speaks in instinct. And instinct doesn't lie. When someone feels safe, their body expands. They occupy more space. Their breathing slows. Shoulders drop, limbs open, gestures flow with ease. They might lean in, expose the torso, keep their hands visible, or plant their feet firmly. These are the signs of comfort, of trust, confidence, calm. But the moment discomfort sets in, the body changes. It contracts. It shields. It withdraws. People start crossing their arms, rubbing their necks, fidgeting, looking away, shielding vulnerable areas, or retreating with their feet. These are not flaws in communication. They're biological cues, designed to protect us. What Navarro makes clear is that these signals are always there. People are constantly leaking how they feel, even if their words suggest otherwise. You just need to train your attention, not to individual gestures in isolation, but to the overall shift in state. That's what makes this system so powerful. You're not trying to become a walking lie detector. You're learning to notice change. When someone goes from relaxed to tense. When stillness gives way to movement. When openness closes. That shift tells you that something important just happened, internally, even if it hasn't been verbalized yet. And that's when your awareness becomes a superpower. You begin to listen differently. Not just to the story, but to the person. You hear what they can't say, or won't say, or don't yet know how to say. And when you do, you stop reacting impulsively. You start responding strategically. It's not about judgment. It's about attunement. Because once you understand that every interaction is a dance between comfort and discomfort, you no longer get lost in the noise. You start following the rhythm beneath it, and that rhythm always tells the truth. Part 4. Baseline first. Why context is everything. If you want to truly understand what someone's body is telling you, you can't just study the movement. You have to understand the baseline. This is one of Joe Navarro's most important lessons. Context is king. A gesture only becomes meaningful when compared to a person's normal behavior. Crossed arms, for example, don't always mean defensiveness. They might signal cold, habit, or even comfort, depending on the person. A twitch of the foot could be nervousness in one individual and completely natural in another. That's why professionals never rush to interpret. They observe first. The baseline is a person's default, how they sit, stand, breathe, gesture, or react when they're calm and unpressured. Once you understand that pattern, you start to notice when something changes. And it's in those deviations where the real meaning lives. This approach removes assumptions. It forces you to slow down, to watch rather than jump to conclusions. Because the same gesture can mean something entirely different in a new context or from a different individual. Without baseline, you're just guessing. With it, you're reading with precision. This also applies to timing and environment. Navarro emphasizes that stress behaviors aren't always about deception. They can come from confusion, anxiety, or even being watched too closely. That's why professionals use multiple data points, noticing how a person's body shifts as questions become more direct, or when a certain subject is introduced. You're not looking for a single tell. You're looking for clusters, patterns, shifts. That's what makes a great reader of people. Not someone who memorizes signs like a list, but someone who observes with patience, tracks change, and understands that no gesture speaks louder than the departure from normal. When you enter a room, when you begin a negotiation, when you start a conversation, take a moment. Let the other person show you who they are at rest. Notice their rhythm, their posture, their hands. That's your map. Because once you know the baseline, every deviation becomes a signal. And that signal points you toward the truth beneath the words. Part 5. Deception, Leakage, and the Problem with the Face. We've been taught to look at the face. It's the center of expression, the mask we wear in conversation, the part we train the most to control. And that's precisely the problem. Joe Navarro warns, the face is the most deceptive part of the body. Not because it's inherently dishonest, but because it's the most rehearsed. From childhood, we're taught to smile when we're sad, to hide pain, to fake enthusiasm, to present ourselves socially in ways that often contradict what we're feeling. The face, for many, becomes a tool of performance. And in high-stakes situations, interviews, interrogations, negotiations, it's the first thing people try to control. But the truth always leaks. And it rarely starts in the face. Navarro explains that deception isn't usually revealed through some Hollywood-style tell. Real deception shows up in conflict between signals, when the words say one thing, but the body says another. That mismatch is where credibility begins to crumble. And while liars might be able to manage their voice and their smile, it's much harder to control the rest. The body resists deception. The brain knows when it's being dishonest, and it sends out stress signals. Micro-expressions, self-soothing gestures, avoidance behaviors, distancing movements, changes in breathing, shifts in tone or tempo. These are not decisions. They're biological reactions. Navarro calls these reactions leakage. They're the unconscious giveaways that something isn't congruent. They might appear for a second, a lip compression, a shoulder shrug, a foot pulling away. But they're there. And once you know how to watch for them, you start catching things others miss. But it's important to be clear, not all discomfort means lying. People can show signs of stress for many reasons. Fear, shame, pressure, trauma. That's why a single behavior is never proof. You're not looking for guilt. You're looking for inconsistency. For patterns. For the moment the body starts contradicting the message. And that's where the power lies. Not in accusation, but in insight. You begin to trust your gut more, not because you're being paranoid, but because you've trained your eye. You become less reactive, more observant. You stop being manipulated by confident words and start tuning in to what's actually happening underneath. Because while the face may try to protect the truth, the rest of the body keeps whispering it. Part 6. Mastering the environment. Space, posture, and dominance. Every interaction happens in a physical space. And within that space, there is a silent negotiation happening. One that most people never notice, but that reveals exactly who feels powerful, who feels vulnerable, and who's in control. Joe Navarro teaches that space and posture are not neutral. They are expressive. They are psychological. The way a person occupies their environment is a window into how they perceive their role, their confidence, and their place in the social hierarchy. Take space, for example. Those who feel confident and dominant tend to expand. They take up room. Their gestures are broad. Their posture is open. They lean in when they speak. They stand tall, arms relaxed, shoulders back, feet firmly planted. They're not just communicating comfort, they're asserting status. Meanwhile, those who feel unsure or submissive tend to shrink. Their limbs pull inward. Their bodies become compact. They minimize their presence, crossing their legs, folding their arms, hunching slightly, avoiding eye contact. These are not random habits. They are instinctive survival behaviors, signals of deference, caution, or perceived threat. You can see this dynamic play out everywhere. In meetings, in negotiations, at dinner tables. One person dominates the room without saying a word, simply by how they sit, how they enter, how they command space. Another yields that space, instinctively retreating from tension, discomfort, or perceived power. Navarro shows that reading this dynamic can shift how you interpret everything else. A message that sounds confident may be undermined by posture that signals uncertainty. A disagreement may not be about logic at all. It may be about who's posturing over whom. A conversation that feels tense might not stem from the topic, but from how physical space is being managed, or violated. He also emphasizes the importance of territorial cues. People feel ownership over space, seats, desks, angles, distance. Invading that space too quickly creates discomfort. Respecting it builds trust. Noticing how someone adjusts their physical environment, moves objects, shifts chairs, guards their belongings, gives you insight into their mental state. None of this is manipulation. It's awareness. When you understand the role of posture in space, you begin to navigate the physical world differently. You move with more intention. You become sensitive to the unspoken boundaries in a room. You recognize dominance not by volume, but by presence. And perhaps more importantly, you learn to carry yourself with congruence. You speak not just with words, but with spine, shoulders, breath, and stillness. Because mastery of the body isn't about intimidation. It's about alignment. And those who are aligned, internally and externally, are the ones who truly lead. Part 7. Building situational awareness and reading with purpose. The real goal of learning body language isn't to impress people with tricks or play mental detective. It's to develop situational awareness. To walk into any environment and immediately begin understanding it. To notice tension before it escalates. To spot disconnection before it turns into loss. To feel power dynamics shift, and to read the room the way others read headlines. Joe Navarro makes it clear, this is not about decoding others to control them. It's about becoming present, perceptive, and prepared. When you begin reading people well, you start noticing patterns. You catch the subtle shift in posture when a question hits a nerve. You sense when someone is holding something back, not because they said so, but because they suddenly stopped moving their hands, or their feet pulled back, or their shoulders dropped just slightly. You begin to understand the rhythm of interaction. When to push forward, when to pause, when to speak, when to observe. But none of this works if your focus is narrow. Navarro insists that true readers observe everything, not just the person, but the environment. How the room is arranged. Where people sit. Who speaks first. Who controls attention. What triggers stress. Where comfort begins and ends. You start to read not just the body, but the entire situation. And in doing so, you position yourself with clarity and calm. This kind of awareness creates choice. You're no longer reactive. You don't just respond to tone or words. You assess intention. You recognize authenticity. You adjust your approach. You prevent mistakes. It's also worth noting that the more skilled you become at reading others, the more aware you become of your own presence. You start managing your own signals, not by pretending, but by aligning your posture with your purpose. When your body says the same thing as your words, people believe you. Trust increases. Resistance fades. And that's the quiet magic of this skill. It doesn't just change how you see others, it changes how others experience you. In a world full of noise, this kind of awareness becomes a rare advantage. Not because it makes you smarter, but because it makes you clearer. And clarity is power. Conclusion: learn to see what others miss. Most people live in a fog of noise, talking, reacting, assuming, missing. But those who master nonverbal intelligence see through that fog. They walk into rooms and notice what others overlook. They feel shifts that others dismiss. They move through life with an awareness that changes everything. Joe Navarro's What Everybody Is Saying isn't just a guide to reading people. It's a guide to seeing truth beneath performance and presence beneath posture. It teaches that the body is always speaking. Not occasionally. Always. And the ones who learn to listen, silently, skillfully, gain a powerful advantage in every area of life. This is not about judgment. It's not about catching liars or gaining power over others. It's about attunement. It's about seeing people more clearly, so you can respond with more empathy, more strength, more clarity. And it's about seeing yourself more clearly too. Because when you begin to pay attention to what the body says, you start aligning your own behavior with who you actually are. You begin showing up congruent, composed, confident, without needing to force it. If this video brought you new insight, let me know in the comments. What part of Navarro's work resonated most with you? And where will you apply it next? If you want to go deeper, I highly recommend reading the full version of What Everybody Is Saying by Joe Navarro. The link is in the description. This is the kind of book that doesn't just give you knowledge, it sharpens your instincts for life. And if this is your first time here, welcome to Compact Wisdom. Subscribe for more distilled insights from timeless books, and share this with someone who's ready to stop guessing and start seeing. Thank you for watching. And remember, people are always speaking. The question is, are you watching closely enough to hear it?